Hi and welcome. I am your virtual host, Eddie, and I don't get why ancient Rome kept messing with their money and still acted surprised when everything got more expensive. So let's ask our Professor Money.
Good question. Rome is one of the clearest examples of how inflation starts small, grows slow, and then suddenly hits like a hammer.
Did they really have inflation like we do, or are we just trying to make the past look more interesting?
They had inflation that was as real as ours, just without supermarket receipts. Prices for basic things like bread, wine, and olive oil went crazy, and one reason was that Rome kept reducing the silver in their coins.
Wait, they just removed the valuable stuff from money and hoped nobody would notice?
Exactly. It started gently. A small reduction here, a little cut there. At first, people didn't care because the coins looked the same. But slowly the truth spread, trust dropped, and prices went up.
Sounds like a bad magic trick.
It was, and it worked about as well as a magic trick where the audience is smarter than the magicians.
So how did this whole thing begin? Rome didn't wake up one day and say, hey, let's ruin our money.
True. In the early empire, Roman coins had high purity. A silver denarius was worth something because it actually contained real silver. But then came wars, expansion, rising military costs, corruption, and emperors who needed fast cash.
Classic government stuff.
Pretty much. When Rome needed more money than it had, instead of raising taxes and making people angry, it melted old coins and produced new coins with less silver. That gave them more coins to pay soldiers and buy grain.
And people accepted these coins?
At first, yes. The coins still looked official, but markets always find the truth. Sellers started raising prices because they knew the coins had less values.
So inflation is just the market saying, hey, nice try.
Exactly. Inflation is a signal that something underneath is breaking.
How bad did it get in Rome?
Very bad. Over a few centuries, the denarius dropped from around 95% silver to almost zero. By the time of Emperor Caracalla, at a point that would be similar today to a currency losing most of its buying power within a single generation, and later Emperor Diocletian, the currency was barely real money.
What did people do when the coins became worthless?
They switched back to barter, hoarded gold and silver, and demanded payment in real goods. Trust in the government and economy collapsed.
So basically the entire system fell apart because the money fell apart.
Right. Once money loses its credibility, everything becomes unstable.
But why didn't they just print new money with better silver again?
Because they were trapped. Restoring real value would have required admitting the mess, cutting military costs, reducing corruption, and raising taxes. Most emperors did not want to risk their popularity or their life.
So they kicked the can down the road until the can had no silver left.
Perfect way to put it.
What about the people? What was life like during Roman inflation?
Imagine waking up and the bread you bought last week suddenly costs twice as much. Your savings are melting. Your landlord now wants payment in wheat instead of coins.
That sounds awful.
It was. Inflation hits the poor hardest. Wealthy Romans held land, slaves, gold, and influence. But average people relied on coin wages. When coins lost value, so did their ability to survive.
And the government just watched this happen?
They tried to fix it the wrong way. The price laws made people fear punishment for raising prices, so many simply stopped trading, which pushed society toward chaos even faster. Emperor Diocletian issued a price control law. He said prices cannot rise beyond a certain point.
That never works.
Never. Sellers simply stopped selling goods because they could not make profit, so goods disappeared from markets.
So to fix inflation, they accidentally created shortages.
Yes, that is the danger of treating symptoms instead of causes.
Let me ask something dumb. If the coins were losing value, why didn't they just create a new kind of money that people trusted?
They tried, but trust is not something you can declare. People trusted gold because it was scarce and valuable. They trusted silver for the same reason. But once a government builds a reputation for debasing money, people don't believe new promises.
So credibility is money.
Exactly. Money is trust printed in metal or paper.
Did other countries back then notice Rome was doing this?
Yes. Traders demanded payment in gold and foreign coins. Roman money was slowly rejected in international trade.
That must have been a disaster.
Losing trust outside your borders makes everything more expensive. Imports become scarce. The army gets harder to pay. Chaos increases.
So inflation basically helped destroy Rome.
It was not the only reason, but it was one of the big ones. Weak money means weak state.
This sounds a bit too familiar.
That is why we study history. The patterns repeat because human behavior repeats.
So what do we learn today from Roman inflation?
We learn that inflation often begins with small steps that seem harmless. A government adjusts something here, adds a spending program there, debases value a little. Nobody notices at first.
And then it grows.
Yes. Inflation builds slowly and then jumps fast. Once people lose trust, it accelerates.
What else?
We learn that price controls never solve inflation. They cause shortages and black markets.
And that money is only as good as the people who manage it.
Exactly.
But give me something practical, something someone today can use.
Sure. Before we shift from history to practical insights, there are 3 timeless lessons from Rome. First, diversify your savings. Rome shows how dangerous it is to rely on one form of money.
Makes sense?
Second, watch government behavior, not government words. Rome always promised stability while secretly minting weaker coins.
Politicians lying, what a shock.
Third, inflation is a trust problem. If institutions lose credibility, inflation becomes almost unstoppable.
So the real lesson from Rome is that you should not ignore small cracks in the system.
Exactly. When money weakens, everything that depends on money weakens with it.
And that is basically the whole economy.
Right?
Let me ask something silly again. What would a Roman think if he saw a modern banknote?
They would probably panic. A piece of paper with no metal behind it would look like a joke.
But our system actually works.
Because people trust it. But Rome teaches us that trust is not permanent. It needs to be protected.
So inflation is not just about numbers. It is a story about human decisions.
Exactly. And Rome shows what happens when those decisions go wrong.
This is pretty wild. I did not expect ancient Rome to teach something so modern.
History often looks old, but the patterns are new every day.
Before we end this, what was the moment where inflation in Rome basically went out of control?
The 3rd century. Civil wars, border attacks, economic instability, and a constant need to pay soldiers. Every emperor reduced the silver content more just to survive.
A survival strategy that destroyed them.
Yes, they solved short-term problems and created long-term collapse.
So if you ever see a government reducing the value of its currency, you should worry.
At least start paying attention.
Good, because I thought inflation was just annoying. Now it feels like a warning sign.
It is. Inflation shows that something deeper is wrong.
And ancient Rome learned that too late.
Exactly.
Thanks, Professor Money. I think I finally understand why Rome's inflation wasn't just about prices.
Anytime.